Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. Welcome, everyone, to a wonderful Saturday morning viewer, DAZ 3D viewer type question stream. I'm so excited that you could all make it and that you're all here. We have a full house. Let me see if I can try to shout you all out. Let's see if I can make it. Mr. Sydney, welcome. Mr. Brian, Patrick, Michael Palmer, Sydney, Dorel is here. Miss Julia is here. Mr. Jeremy is here. And I believe I've also seen, haven't I seen, Michael, I've already shouted you out. There were other people. Oh, Kevin, of course. How you doing, Kevin? Good to see you. And thank you so much for that comment about high resolution morphs that you can indeed bring into and out of DAZ Studio and back into ZBrush. I think somebody on my Discord server just posted a link by Thundawn Games, and Matt from Thundawn, great channel, check it out. Very nice DAZ tips, very handy to have. He has just made a video about this, I believe, and somebody posted it on my Discord. I haven't watched it yet, but Kevin, that is exactly what you probably want to know. So you can make high resolution morphs or high resolution maps. I think you can bake out and then use them inside DAZ Studio. There are some repercussions, but have a look into that. If somebody could dig out the link and post it in this chat, that would be awesome. Yes, Matt from Thundawn Games. He has a great channel of about anything and everything about DAZ Studio. There's photography tips in there, and there's RenPy development tips, and some video gaming too. So all good, all good. Miss Christina, very good. Christina, all the way from Australia. This is exciting. I have a few things on my, so for you, it'll be evening, right? Almost night, is that right? My goodness, with such a small community spread over such a large globe, isn't that amazing? I have a few topics on my list today, and I thought I'm going to go through them, see how many we can cover. And I'm open for suggestions and questions as well. So I need to do a little bit of work, which is in fact a little bit of a poll. Let's go and start with the poll. I can create one here. Let me just type this out. Shall the crab and mouse appear on the official DAZ stream this afternoon? You can say yes or no. And I'm going to go and put that into the YouTube chat now, and you can vote. Do you want to see the crab overlay that keeps, you know, the crab and the mouse that keeps walking over my screen? Would you like to see that on the official DAZ stream this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern time? Because yes, I am insane. I'm streaming twice today. Once here in the morning. This is to create my own content, to, you know, have some material that I can post on my YouTube channel going through probably in the next couple of weeks. And then of course at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be on the official DAZ channel for showing you how to build a sci-fi scene in DAZ Studio with the latest Eclipse bundle. I hope I can see you there. It's going to be very exciting. Plans for this morning is that I might amend the mouse to just be spread out a little bit more. So we might do that at the end. I'm also going to show you how I'm going to basically recreate my own DAZ Studio user interface. So it's very different from the default things that appear there. And there were a couple of questions on, hey, can we see how you do that? And I can talk you through it. Also tell you about why it's laid out the way it is. In my case, there's also, have I got it open? I don't think I have it open. Let me go and start with that, shall I? Start DAZ Studio, and then we'll see what happens. Then I'm going to talk about how you can do automatic keyframing and switch that on and off in DAZ Studio. Something I came across more or less by accident, which is kind of interesting. There's also how you can remove the filament draw options from DAZ Studio. That is another question somebody had. I believe Abyssal Eros had that on the DAZ forum. He was concerned that he doesn't want filament, he doesn't even want to see it. Rather than not using it, he wanted an option to basically, I just wanted to show him you can remove it if you don't want to see it. Like with many components in DAZ Studio, you can just remove them if you don't want them to be there. There's also merging material zones and dealing with material zones that from things that you might have brought in from Marvelous Designer, how you can deal that in DAZ Studio. There's also phase controls that I'd like to talk about. That is a very, very exciting thing. So maybe we'll start, we'll leave that for the end. My goodness, there's a lot, isn't there? Let's go and do the user interface first. A small bite, top of the morning to you. How you doing? So this is my current DAZ Studio layout, and I really like using it this way. And I'm using it because I've been using DAZ Studio for like over 15 years, my goodness. So that is quite a while, and I've found this setup after playing around with lots and bits and pieces, and this really works for me. And this removes, for me, for my scene building jobs, it removes certain face controls. Yes, coming up, Kevin. This removes certain elements of frustration that I have come across when I bring in content and I see something like the scene tab and the parameters tab, for example, on the same pane. Imagine this was over here and I have to look into my scene and see what's there, and then I have to basically select the parameter, select an object here, then go back to the parameters, go back, select something else, go back to parameters. This is annoying, so I wanted to have that on two parts of the screen so that they're both accessible at the same time. So that's kind of why this is over here. There are also tabs in the default layouts that I don't use, and I rather they don't lurk around and remove things that are there that I don't need and just use the things that I do need frequently. So that is kind of what I'd like to build. So what we do then is, before you follow me along, if you have something that is dear to you, if you have made yourself a setup that is dear to you, make sure you save it. You can do that under Window, Workspace, Save Layout As. And I'm going to go and save mine as something like current, just so that I know what that is before I start fiddling around. I have all my layouts saved. Current layout, fiddling perhaps. It gives you some options here, actions, menus and toolbars. You can set these to custom, or you can leave them on any of the other layouts that you have. So I'm going to leave them all on custom. That means everything that I may have changed here on my layout will be saved with these bits and pieces. So current layout, pre-fiddling, I'll go and hit accept, and it says to me, the current layout pre-fiddling custom layout has been saved. It can be accessed by Window, Workspace, Select Layout. So that's another thing that is quite nice. If you have different types of workflow that require different panes to be in different places, you can make yourself various layouts, and that's kind of cool. So I have one that I use for things like material zone setups and things that require the figure setup tab, and they're all kind of, you know, they're on different configurations, and you can change those by heading over to Workspace and say Select Layout. That is it. So if you do that, then you have this one. That's the one that that's not the one. The current layout pre-fiddling. If you select that, it comes up with a little screenshot, and you can just go and accept that, so it'll bring everything back the way you've had it. But other of my layouts include things that have dual monitors. I also have ones from other years, so my layout kind of changes depending on what I'm doing with DAZ Studio, and also changes over time as I learn new bits and pieces, new tricks. So I'll keep changing them around, and you know, I do make amendments. But the current one, that's basically the one that you see, and that's the one that we're going to recreate. So yes, so the reason why I've set it out the way it is because this is what I'm using mostly, and it works really well for me. But the default layouts, you can bring them in via Window, Workspace, just where we just were, Select Layout, and then the top ones here at the top, Full Service, Hollywood Boulevard, Self-Service, City Limits Light, and City Limits. Those are the ones that they give you from DAZ Studio, that come with DAZ Studio, and they try to be really helpful here. So let's go through them all and see how they differ and which one I'd start with and amalgamate into my own layout. So Full Service is basically the easy way. They have a little dialog box, a little description. They have a little screenshot of a preview of what it'll look like. If you hit accept, then things will just, you know, take a moment. Things will rejig, and things look very different now. So we have this blue background here. Keyboard shortcuts and modifiers are now different than the ones that I've set up, and most importantly, you have these tabs at the top here. So this is something that is kind of an interesting design philosophy. Many 3D programs used to have that about 20 years ago, and it's kind of fallen out of favor. The Adobe suite still has this kind of thing that when you click a tab here, it changes the user interface depending on what you're doing with the application. So the idea is you start here, and for bringing in actors and wardrobe, you need certain tabs and you need certain bits and pieces. So you do that. Once you're done with that, you go and click on this tab, and you go and pose people, and then once you go on this tab, you can maybe animate people, then you set your lights, and then when you're ready to render the final scene, then you press this tab. But I never really liked that because I get confused when things change the things that I needed them to be there at one point. So it's one of those things, you know. Yes, Blender still has that. Blender has that. Yeah, the Adobe Suite, like Premiere, has a way where you can bring in your clips, and another tab that lets you edit clips. Photoshop has that. But you know, I'm not really a massive fan of that. Most importantly, some of the tabs are missing. So I don't really like this layout, but it tries to make it really easy for new users. It's trying to hide lots of stuff that might otherwise be confusing to people. So it's just trying to hide options that would just be overkill if you're just getting started with DAZ Studio. Notice that under Window Workspace, we can't actually save a layout right now. We can only select one. So that's how dumbed down this is. It's basically cutting down, it's pruning the menus. It's leaving everything in very, you know, it's trying to get things to a very simple level. So I don't use that. Hollywood Boulevard is similar, but it gives you a few more options. So it's along the same lines. It still has these tabs at the top, but it also has some tabs on the right here, so it adds new things to it, but it's trying to not overwhelm you. So I don't use that one either. So we go and have a look at the next one, which is self-serve. So it tells you this now means you've been around the block a few times and you have a little bit of experience. So we're giving you even more options, and we're letting you loose. We're introducing more things, so you have more icons. You still have these tabs at the top, and you know, it's another thing that some people might use. So I just wanted to show you if your DAZ Studio interface looks totally different than mine, this is why. I like basing mine on City Limits Lite. So this is almost giving you all the options, but in a slightly condensed way. So this is kind of, it could look similar to what I'm using, but the menu bar is totally different and the tabs on the left and the right are different. So I'm going to base mine on this, because that's kind of what I got used to. There's one more advanced version, I guess you could call it. Many creators use that. It's the City Limits. It's not light, it has everything. And it introduces an additional icon bar on the right-hand side. So now you have icons on the left, on the top, and on the right, and you basically have every tab imaginable that you can open and close if and when you need it. I'm not using this either because it is just so much clutter. So most of the icons I don't use, just because I'm not an icon guy. They look all very nondescript to me, but we're all very different. So that's why it's kind of nice to have all these options here. You have tabs left, tabs right, tabs at the bottom. You've got tabs everywhere. Even when they're all closed, there's still a lot of clutter that I don't really need. So what I'm going to go and do, recreate my layout now, is go and select the City Limits Light layout and go from there. It already has the gray background here. That's on the environment tab if you ever needed to change that. If you have one with a blue background or one with a white background, that looks a bit crazy on the eyes. So the first thing I will do is I'm going to close tabs that I know I'm never going to use. One of them is up here. That's the install tab. I don't really use install tab for that. I only use the smart content and the content library. So to close one of these tabs, you just right click on it and choose close pane, and then that disappears. Gives us some rest here. I also don't use the render library, even though it's an interesting feature. I don't use it, so I'm going to close it. It gets rid of some more bits and pieces. Draw settings, render settings, simulation settings, I use all of them. I don't use the aux viewport, so I'm going to go and close that pane as well. The environment tab, this is where you can set a background. I don't use that either. If I do need it, I know where it is. So anything that I can close, I can also bring back under window, panes, and then just pick whatever I need, and then I can go and dock it in place if I wanted to do that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Parameters tab, super important, but I like for that not to be on the same side as the scene tab. So I'll go and left click and drag that over here. And I suppose with the new framework that they're using for DAZ Studio 5, this is going to look a little bit better. So right now I can barely see where I'm dropping my thing. So it looks like I don't really get a preview. I can only just trust that while I'm left clicking and dragging, as soon as I stop left clicking, it should kind of pop into place here somewhere. And it does indeed. I don't really know if it's above or below where I'm dropping it. It was below, so it's that's what I like. So this is where I like my parameters pane. The shaping pane is another one of those I don't use. Those parameters are already in the parameters tab, so I don't use shaping myself. I know people use it, but that's not for me. Face transfer I don't use either. I also don't use the posing tab, so that also goes. Those things are accessible inside the parameters tab, and I kind of know where to look, so I'd like to close these things. The surfaces tab, that's also important, so I'm going to go and left click and drag that over here as well. Usually that I put that underneath my parameters tab, so left click and drag, pop it in place, and then that's where that will dock. If they're in the wrong position, if you like the surfaces tab somewhere above the parameters tab, you can just go left click and drag, and then the positions of those tabs will change. So I like doing that. Exactly, icons to the left, icons to the right. And that's almost the interface done. There's also lights and cameras here on the right hand side. I don't use lights. I'll close that. I do use the cameras from time to time, but it's not exactly necessary. So this is just splitting out a selection of cameras or lights, whichever tab you're using, that are also accessible on the parameters tab. Sometimes it's nice that you have the parameters of an item showing that you've got selected, while also then going to the camera settings and quickly making a change there. So it's personal preference. I might just leave it in here and just go move that down so that the cameras tab is now kind of at the bottom here. This brings me to another interesting point. There are still more things we can get rid of before we even deal with the toolbar. And that's these little tips at the bottom. So that you can see tips and node. Those are things that they're trying to be helpful. This is associated, it's kind of very complicated. This is associated with this top tab. So every tab has that. We have tips for the top. And then so at the bottom of a pane, we have tips. So like with the camera here, if I go and make that a bit bigger, if I can. Like so, I have tips at the bottom. Those are the tips for the camera, and they're trying to give you helpful hints. So if you go and click on these buttons, you'll get directed to the website and you get some tips and tricks here. If you don't want to see this, you can go and click this tiny little separator here, and then the tips completely collapses. So if I'll do this again, there's tips and node here, and I don't want to see either of these things because I'm not using it. There's this tiny little yellow streak here. If you click that, it goes and collapses that thing completely down. So you can bring it back. This is now dangerous because it has two of these little yellow streaks here. So the bottom one is the one that separates the top and the bottom window, but the top one, can you see that here? That's the one that brings up the tips for the top window. And if you don't want to see that, you can just go and click on that and that collapses. I hope that kind of makes sense. Mr. Chris, top of the morning, sir. Good to see you. I'm just recreating my favorite interface in DAZ Studio, the layout that I like using because it makes the most sense to me, and this is the one I'm most comfortable with. So you can do this on all these tabs and panes. So like, at the bottom here, there's the tips on the parameters tab. If I don't want to see that, I'll just click that, and then there's just a little bit less clutter, and you can literally go and do that on all these tabs. Content library, I just usually make that a little bit bigger. And smart content tab, it has the same thing. It has tips and info. I don't want to see either of them. I'll go and make that collapse. And then at the bottom, I have animate and my regular timeline. It's kind of the way I like it as well. So that's cool. I'll go and collapse those. So that's more or less the tabs done. I might also just disable the aspect frame here, and so that's kind of the bulk of it. There's a couple of tabs missing that I like using, and I usually put them here in the scene tab. So one of them is of course the simulation pane, which is important for me. So I'll go into window panes. There's another way to do that. I'll show you that as well, and I'll grab my simulation settings, and that is now down here, but I don't want it down here. I want to go and put it left click and drag up here. There. And again, we have the tips. I don't need the tips. Perfect. Gonski. So now I have the scene and the simulation settings. Sometimes I put the cameras up here as well. Sometimes I don't use the cameras at all. And that is pretty much it. I'm pretty sure there's one tab missing that I can't quite think of right now. I should rewind the stream and see what was there in that place. Do you remember? There's something, usually when I need to see it, then I'm going to go and bring it back. One of those things. But aside from those, there's two other tabs missing that I find very, very important, and they're very often underutilized, and that's the draw settings and the tool settings. So I need these things all the time. The tool settings have adjustments on any of the tools that you use. So like the 3D manipulator, the rotator, the geometry editor, which currently isn't showing on the menu. So we'll deal with the menu in a moment. Those things, they all have settings, and to change them, we need the tool settings tab. So I want to go and bring it in here. So the one way to do it is to do it from the window tab, window, tabs, panes, and then pick it from there. But you can also go and right click on any of these portions of, like the empty portion of the pane essentially, and if you right click that, you can go and say add a pane from there. So I need my tool settings, and as you do that, it docks itself automatically in that spot. That's quite nice. So tool settings I need, and also need the draw settings, and they are responsible for draw settings. Where are they? Are they? Oh, they're here already. I've got them already. All I need to do is move them to the bottom. It's kind of in the least used is at the bottom. This one is responsible for how the viewport behaves that you've currently selected. So in here, I can say if I use my if I have something like a primitive in here, say a cube, and if I go and have, by default, this is all disabled at the moment. By default, in the texture shaded view, I believe, you see the surface highlight every time you hover a mouse over a thing. And if you have 20 objects in your scene, you just see flashing all the time. And if you're epileptic, then, you know, that's going to cause a seizure. So I'd rather, you know, this is not switched on. I find that very irritating during presentations as well. When you see YouTube tutorials and people do this all the time and you see this flashing, you think, I'm getting dizzy here. So you can use the draw settings to disable that. That's in bounding box only. You can disable that, and then it doesn't show. And this is dependent on the viewport, and it's also dependent on the tool. So some tools, like the surface selection tool, they do make sense if you hover over something and you want the surface that you're currently selecting highlight, that you know which surface it is. So that makes perfect sense. But some things like the 3D manipulator, that doesn't make sense. So I switch it off in the draw settings tab. It is, isn't it, Brian? Puppeteer. Thank you so much, Marcelo. Absolutely. How could I have forgotten Puppeteer? Let's go do that. Right click on here and say yes, Puppeteer and Power Pose. Thank you. Those are the ones, the P's. So Puppeteer goes here. That's an important tab for me. And then I'm also going to use, well spotted, Marcelo. Thank you so much. I love it. And then we have the Power Pose. And those are, I find those really important. I think more important than the simulation settings. So I'll go put those downstairs here. I might even just go get rid of cameras. I'm thinking cameras, close pane. There we go. So Puppeteer, yes, very, very important. And then there's Power Pose. Loving that. Okay, goody. That is that. By default, I also do something else. I just wanted to mention that. I don't use the default modifier keys for orbiting around things and panning things in the scene. So by default, you have to click Control and Alt, and then left click and drag to orbit around an object, and right click and drag to pan. So I don't really use that, because if you do it a lot, I found that just pressing two keys is just too cumbersome for me, and I also find that my left little finger is kind of too far down, so it's not comfortable for me to do that. So I much prefer to do it like many other applications do it, like Hexagon, for example. Just click Alt and then left click and drag, and hit Shift and left click and drag to do the to walk around in the viewport. I find that much more it's just, this is more comfortable. If you're using DAZ Studio a lot, then doing this with your fingers, that's not good for your arm. So I tend to not do that. I know these are the defaults, and I try to remember it, but for me that doesn't quite work out. So I change that, and the way to do that is under Window, Workspace, Customize. This is kind of a really scary part of the interface. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go through more of this as we get to the toolbar that we're going to go and tweak. So this here at the very bottom, view controls, this is it, mouse button modifiers, orbit, control alt left mouse button, and then we have pan, which is control alt right mouse button. So what I do is I use orbit, I just use alt and left mouse button. So the way to do that is just click into here, double click I believe, into this field until it says enter new shortcut, and then you just hold alt left click into this field, and then that's changed. The same with pan. So double click in, and I'll just go and say shift click, and that's that. Apply and accept. I suppose accept was probably going to be enough for that, but that is how I'm kind of used to walking around in the, or how I like to orbit the viewport. It's a little bit easier for me. Note though that if you ever get into node weight brush painting, then that isn't going to work for you, because it requires alt to subtract from the selection. So it's one of those things, be careful about that. But that is why I have multiple interfaces set up for multiple types of workflow. So for scene building, I prefer this, but if I deal with weight maps, then I use the regular modifiers that DAZ Studio offers. One of those things. Yes, that is that's kind of how I do that. Maybe we'll go and give you a little color there, buddy. Very nice. Let's deal with the toolbar next. So that looks very different in my layout as well than it does in the default. And I don't use this because there's a lot of icons. I just never use them, and I really don't know what this is. I mean, I know if I look closely, this is a point light, and if I hover, you know, I can see the description. But I'm more like a menu kind of guy, and too many icons, they kind of confuse me. Or if it's the wrong icons, that confuses me as well. So I tend to not use any of these. New file, open, close, save, import, export. I don't use these. The DAZ Studio has icons for literally everything. Figure setup tool and God knows what else. It's I don't use those types of things. I use only the tools here. These things for the manipulator and the selection bits and pieces, as well as a couple of others, I believe. And I don't use the render tools either, so I'm going to go and remove them. Instead, I find it much more helpful to use the DAZ Studio, the scene tools by 3D Universe. So I'll show you how to amend that. Do you know, Ibrahim, welcome. There is kind of a crash course. There's some stuff on the DAZ channel. There's also one on my channel, which is called DAZ Studio 101. That'll basically take you through the interface and take you through how the workflow works. And there's many other tutorials on my channel that show you how to build little projects and how to get the most out of DAZ Studio. So if you want to have a look at that, it'll be greatly beneficial before you get going. There's also documentation, actually, speaking of it. If you just got a copy of DAZ Studio and you think, hey, I wish there was integrated documentation, lo and behold, there is. I found that out by sheer coincidence. There is, in fact, a whole pane that'll help you with that. If you go and either go to Window and head over to Panes, there's an actual help tab somewhere. There, this is amazing. And it has links to a PDF user guide, believe it or not. If you click that, this opens and it gives you a 96-page user guide for DAZ Studio. This is for version 4.6, but the interface and the layout hasn't actually changed all that much. So it is, it will get you started if you're more into written instructions. This is highly beneficial. And there's a couple of other things that you'll get here. There's a quick start guide. So that's a different PDF altogether. If you wanted to look into that, those things will also get you started. But they're a little bit hidden inside DAZ Studio. So I know it's something. Wouldn't it be nice if people would know about this? Huh? There's some quick start videos here that'll take you there. But yes, it's an actual help pane in DAZ Studio. I'm going to show you how to open that again, just in case we've missed it. So either right click on any of the free spaces here and hit add pane and choose help. That'll dock that right in there. Or you can also go and left click and drag it somewhere over here. Maybe put it right in the center next to your viewport so that you don't miss it. Or if you're more a fan of not doing that, you can also head over to Window, Panes, and pick help from there. So that'll get you started. It is a total surprise to me as well. Michael, oh, that's nice of you to say. Thank you. I'm glad you found that useful. Yeah, there's some good classics in there, and I'm hoping. I never really finished the series. I always glanced over render settings. There's also characters and all that. It's not mentioned. That was always planned for a second series, and I just got busy with other things. I just couldn't do it. So, but it's still in the back of my mind. So one day I'll either complete it, or more likely I'm going to start again from scratch the moment DAZ Studio 5 hits the road. And then we can just have a cohesive starter guide. We can even collaborate on this and let me know what you'd like to see. Let me know your major stumbling blocks with DAZ Studio and see what it is that you'd like to see in there. Let's have a look at the toolbar. This is another very, very interesting thing to modify, and it's kind of difficult, but we'll get there together. Commander Cody, top of the morning, sir. Let's tweak the toolbar to my liking. Window, Workspace, Customize is going to get you there. There's also F3, that's a shortcut for that. And in here, this looks very scary, and this is don't be bamboozled by all the options here. It's kind of crazy. You have activities with toolbars, main and tools on and off. You also have toolbars here, which are main and tools, and you have menus here, and you have all kinds of shortcuts that you can set. And this is a complex menu, so I'm going to just scratch the bare surface of it, hoping I can remember this, because this is not something I touch very often. Just briefly on the left hand side here, this is essentially every action that you could ever have with DAZ Studio. So anything that you would like to set up a custom shortcut for, you can find in here. You don't often know where to look, but if you do want a particular shortcut for something that Animate has to offer, you can go in here and then go and define one, or look up what shortcuts are already defined for that. So I think the one that I recently needed was when you have an object in your scene and you want to save that out as a standalone prop asset, figure prop asset. So rather than, this is what I had to do 400 times. You go into File, Save As, Support Asset, Figure Prop Asset. And that's difficult to do if you do it time and time again. So you can set up a shortcut for that. And the way I did that was in going into Window, Workspace, Customize. And then in here we'll find the save filter. So this is usually what takes a little bit of time to find out where is the thing that you need from the menu. So mine was under save filters, and then there was figure prop asset somewhere. I'm sure I can find it at one point. Well, anyway, if it was here somewhere, where is it? Well, let's say pros preset instead. Once you have that, you can right click on this space here and say change keyboard shortcut, and then once again you can just press a keyboard shortcut that you like for that, or hit escape, and then oh no, it's decided it is now escape. That's not the keyboard shortcut, no. So go and say clear keyboard shortcut again. But this is how you set up shortcuts. If you have something that you use frequently, that is how you can do that. It's just a matter of finding out where your particular filter is hiding. There it is, figure prop asset. That's what I was looking for. Ryukin, good morning. Very good to see you, sir. Or madam, either or. So, but what we're going to do is change the icons on the top. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I think it's under toolbars. There's main. No, that's not it. It's actually under activities, sorry. Activities, toolbars, there's main, and then there's tools. So one is on, one is off. The main is, I believe, all of these regular file actions here. And it's currently switched on. Whereas the tools, the one that I want, is switched off. So I think what I can do is right click and enable the toolbar. And then nothing happens. That's okay. We need to click apply and then I will see a preview of what's just happened. So I can see that a lot of other tools have now appeared on the right here, and those are the ones that I use. Some of them are in here as well, but not all of them. So there's like the scary ones. There's the figure, the active pose tool, the geometry editor, and all that. I can't see that in here. Those are all part, literally from here to here. Those are all part from the main toolbar, and I don't really want to use that, so I'm going to go and disable that. Hit apply, and then that'll collapse this whole bit and only leave me with the tools toolbar, which is this thing at the top left here. And this is closer to what I need as icons. So this lets me now select either the universal manipulator or the walking around manipulator or the surface selection tool or the geometry editor. So those are the things that I use most. And then there's the weight brush editor, and this is active pose, so you can use that as well. This is the joint editor. So they're all very important tools if you're doing content creation in DAZ Studio. So it's one of those things. It's handy to have those there. Yes, absolutely, Christina. You gotta catch some sleep, and I will hopefully see you later for the DAZ stream if you're up at that point. It's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the official DAZ channel. You might be just getting up at that point. I don't know what that is in Australia. It must be something like 7 in the morning. Depends on where you are in Australia, of course. Thank you for dropping by. I appreciate that. So this is that. I'll hit apply, hit accept, and that has changed a significant portion of my icons there. The other ones are toolbars that are then added by 3D Universe's scene tools. So I can go and I think I can find them. They might be in utilities. Yes, there they are. So this is Scene Tools 1, Scene Tools 2, and Scene Tools 3. And each of them, they have not only each single tool that you can access, it also has an option to add that as a specific toolbar at the top. So when I do this, when I double click that, it'll go and add itself to the top here. And this is kind of the most important one that I like, that lets me enable and disable hair and clothing and shoes and switch everything to low resolution and hide bits and pieces that are selected from a hierarchy and all that. So this is a very good tool for me to have. It allows me to just make everything, bring everything back, hide clothing on a character or in fact on all characters in the scene. So it's kind of, I like this. But there's other tools that I find helpful, which are contained in the Scene Tools set 2, and it also has the same setup. So each tool is accessible as an action or as a little icon, but also double click the toolbar set and it'll just go and add that over here. There we go. There's even, I think, Commander Cody, there's even a bot shortcut for that, !DAZ stream. That will also bring that up, just in case. Do you know, have you seen, there's actually, this is kind of cool. Let me just go and show you this. On the DAZ website, on DAZ 3D, there is, under the shop section, I believe that stream is mentioned on the front page in this little box here, I think. Is it? Oh no, they've taken it off. What a shame. It was there until yesterday. That's cool. There was a link here that that showed, I believe, there's a landing page for this as well. It's called In the Studio with DAZ 3D. Look at that. That is just magnificent. Wonderful work by Travis there. Thank you, Travis, for putting this together. So this is not only an advert for a landing page for today's stream, but for forthcoming streams as well. It'll give you a link to the current live stream and the Facebook live stream, hopefully also soon to the Twitch channel that we've created. We thought while we're multi-streaming, we might as well also go and stream to Twitch, so we've done that as well. And at the bottom here you get the latest offers, the one that I'm going to be using in the series, and then further down you see past episodes in the series. So I thought, whoa, that's just quite nice. I really appreciate that. So there's great exposure for these streams on the DAZ front page. I'm loving that. It's good. Just thought I'd show you that. And yeah, this is kind of the place to go to if you've missed live streams, or if there are live streams that you don't quite know when is the next one. This is the page that's going to show you that. Very exciting. Let's go at the third toolbar here, which is this one here, the DAZ Studio Scene Tools Set 3. Double click, and then we have basically my interface. This is exactly the interface that I know and love, apart from maybe some small tweaks on the size of these things. There we go. I'm very particular about size, so these need to be a little bit larger here. There, and that's that. That is my interface. And that is how I create it, and that's how I can recreate it from scratch every time. And now the final step here, I need to go and save this and make sure this is the one that I can go back to in case I do make a change, in case I fiddle around in menus and I don't quite know what I'm doing and I've screwed things up and I'm thinking, oh dear, is there an option to go back? Well, you can only, once you've saved your layout, you can go back to that. It's kind of nice. So I'll go and save this layout as something like current post fiddling. Let's just say that. And I'll save my actions, menus, and toolbars. They all need to be set to custom. And I can also give it a description if I wanted to remind myself of what is this for. Quick UI demo, perhaps. But if you have more elaborate notes to yourself, you can go and put them in here. Hit accept. DAZ Studio will tell you that went well, and you can bring it back at any time. There we go. That is that. You never know what's going to happen with DAZ Studio 5. I don't think there's going to be a major change, but there could be. So I don't know if they're going to do that. I know what you mean. It might look a little bit dated, but you know, at least it's dark gray, so that's kind of cool. Thank you, Chris. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. While I'm here, while I've got a cube in the scene, let me show you a fantastic trick that I've only just come up against, more or less by total accident, and that is how you can set automatic or manual keyframes in DAZ Studio in the timeline. So let me go and use my cube for that here. So there's this thing, and I've always been puzzled by this, that when you move an object, it will go and set keyframes automatically. So not on the first frame, and we always have to do that manually to have that keyframe here for my cube. But if I go and move my playhead now to say frame 5, and I'll go and left click and drag my cube, you'll see that DAZ Studio has created an automatic keyframe here. And as a result, if I go and move my playhead, my cube moves and interpolates between these values. But sometimes that's mega annoying, and you think, well, I'd rather this didn't happen. And is there a way to enable and disable that? And the answer is yes-ish. This is kind of a stretched yes-ish. There is, and it works for most objects in the scene, but it doesn't seem to work for all objects in the scene. So I thought I'll tell you what I've learned and how we can make use of that. So if I stick with my cube and I've had that automatic keyframe here, then I've explained before that this menu, this magic menu here, is kind of an important one. TRA means I'm seeing translation, rotation, and aliases on the timeline. So my cube, when I move my cube, I've just changed the translation parameter here, which is why I have a keyframe here. T, that's the keyframe. And the automatic keyframe was selected because this was enabled. So had I, in fact, if I go and rotate it now, then I'll see that there's another keyframe that's being created, namely on the rotation track here, and it is correct. I've had that enabled, and that is when an automatic keyframe is created. But if I go move to frame, I don't know, frame something here now, and I disable both translation, maybe I'll just disable translation and not rotation, and I go and move my cube now, then I'm expecting for there not to be a keyframe as I move this thing back. And that is exactly what happened. So I've moved my cube, but the automatic keyframe hasn't happened because the track under types was not selected. Ha ha ha. And that is the whole magic of it. If I enable that again, translation, and I go and move my cube now on this other keyframe, then I can see that the keyframe is created immediately. But this is how to do it. If you don't want automatic keyframing enabled, then you have to go to this little menu and basically disable every option. So you still see your cube, but you don't see it having any tracks. So now, or your object rather. So now as you go and move your playhead, you can do whatever you like with your objects, and that is kind of cool. And now no automatic keyframes are being selected. These are the ones that were selected already, but there's no automatic keyframes added to the timeline. Is that cool or what? That is like a complete surprise. I didn't know DAZ Studio had that. And I was very happy when I found out. There is, of course, it doesn't work for all objects, sadly. So it's the same for morph slider. So morphs and values, they're on the other slider here. So if I had a figure and it had shaping values that you wanted to animate, like, you know, figure shapes or stuff like that, anything that's a parameter, like a pose dial parameter, expression dial, something like that, you have to this other selected, and then those morphs will show up. And if that's enabled, then your morphs and expressions and all that will also be auto keyframed, or not if you disable it. So very important. I say it works for most objects, because the one that I find most annoying when this is applied to is, of course, our camera. And for some reason, even with all these things disabled, cameras, they don't follow along. I'm so sad to say. I don't think they do. I mean, let's have a look. I'm going to go and create myself a new camera, apply the selected viewport here. That's my camera. And sometimes what happens is you look through the camera and you're not on the first frame of the timeline. Say you're on a different frame and you think, oh yeah, actually I want to just go and quickly frame up this guy, and you're looking through the camera here and you move your camera, and somehow that is still auto keyframe, even though my camera isn't even selected and I've disabled everything. The camera is exempt from that, which is a shame. This is either an oversight, or there's another way to disable that. I haven't found out how to do that. The cameras are usually the ones that are problematic, that they auto keyframed while you're kind of on a particular frame of your animation, and you go and do something with the camera that you're looking through. That is often where I make mistakes and screw things up. So sadly, they're exempt from that. But if there is a way to lock them off, then you know, that's an idea. How did you lock them off in DAZ Studio, or how do you do that? Because I don't know if that applies to. Yeah, let me know, Brian. How do you lock the cameras off? Could even be a parameter. Sumswares. Visible in viewport, selectable, visible, and in simulation. So it could be that could be disabled with the selectable option. Let's have a look. Yeah, so you disable it, Commander Cody, like I've shown you here with just disabling these things, but you can still manually set keyframes with this little icon down here. So you can do that too. So in Blender, we just hover over a property and we press I, and in DAZ Studio it's this. So if you set a keyframe on this, then this will set a keyframe on all properties that are currently selected on this object. So this would set a manual keyframe no matter where you are, and no matter if automatic keyframing is enabled or disabled. Very important. Yeah, no, I don't think you can lock them in DAZ. I mean, we can try it out. Brian, why don't we do that? Let me just go and create my camera 2. I think it's because you can make them unselected. You can do that. That's this icon here. That means if you have this, if you click this, then the object in your scene isn't selectable. So now if I do this on the cube, and if I click on something in the scene, whoops, then currently the cube's selectable, but if I deselect that, then it's unselectable, so I can't accidentally click on it. That's good for environments. If you have something like small background detail and you don't want to constantly select the book on the bookshelf, because that's just not what you want to do, you just make that unselectable. But yeah, it's not. So yeah, I can do this with cameras, but I'm not entirely sure if it'll work, because I can still look through the camera. But let's have a look. If I go and move here and on frame 5, so my camera still moved, has it? That's bizarre. Yeah, so my camera is still creating keyframes, even though it's not selected, it's invisible, and I'm disabling keyframes, so it's still doing that. So it's yeah, Yeah, I don't think there's a way to lock camera so that they're not moving. I don't think so, Brian. But if there is, I'm totally gonna investigate that. Yes, they can, absolutely. That is possible. You can do that if you create a null. So the null is the concept of the Blender's empty. That's the null in DAZ Studio. If you create one, then by default it ends up in the center of the scene. It has just the name null, and it's just an empty node, and you can go and parent a camera to the null and then move the null around, and then the camera itself will follow wherever the null goes. I've just made a video about that in regards to turntable animations, in which I'm explaining how you can frame up your camera, put a null in the middle, and parent the camera to the null, and then you rotate the null and the camera will follow that rotation. That's on my channel. It's just come out. It's about it's about to come out. It's about to come out next week. It's called Orbiting Around an Object. Marcelo, yes, you can do that. You can do that. Essentially, you would either copy and paste the keyframe, or you would just move it. So let me show you how to do that. So if I, let's say we use in fact, let's go and start with a brand new scene before we get our, what's it called, knickers in a twist. I'll go and create a new primitive with which we shall demonstrate with the sphere, perhaps. That's the sphere, and I'm going to go and just enable translation here so that we see translation. I'll go and create my first keyframe at the bottom, and then let's say I'm at frame 20 and the sphere is here, and I'm thinking, hey, I would like for frame 20 to really be frame 1. I'd like to do that. I'd like to either copy this or just move it all the way over to the beginning. You can drag around the keyframes that you want to select. The triangles are not exactly keyframes, they are a group of keyframes. So by doing this, you will select the whole group. Technically, if I go and open my sphere up here, technically the T is the keyframe. So you can go and drag the T over, either left click and drag it to where it needs to be. So you can just drag it onto something else. And then the sphere's first keyframe is in fact this. Or if I go and undo this, I can also go and use the triangle for that. So I can go and select the triangle, also multiple triangles, and that'll move more keyframes that might be hiding in this track. That moves multiple. So left click and drag. Sometimes it's a bit temperamental. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. Like in this case. So yeah, I don't know why it doesn't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's temperamental. The safer option is to go and select the keyframe and then just move the keyframe. That usually works. The triangles at the top, they work sometimes don't work. So it's one of those things. There's another thing that you can do. Instead of moving it, you can go and right click, or left click to mark it, or marquee select the keyframes that you want. Then right click on it and select copy, select the keys. You can do that. And then go move the playhead somewhere else. And then go right click and paste the selected keys. That'll also work. So then you can duplicate keyframes if you ever wanted to do that. So it is possible in DAZ Studio. It's just often not something that's all that obvious. Oh really? Oh Brian, we can lock cameras? Could it be? Could it be? Brian, that is so cool. This is what I love about coming together like this, when we just all puzzle over something and then we think about things, and wouldn't it be cool if that feature existed, and then we find out it does. That is just so cool. Brian, let's make it happen. Let me go and create a camera. Copy the perspective view. That's my camera. The padlock icon, and you say it's on the parameters tab. Parameters check in the camera. Is there a padlock icon? Mutual tutorials, that's exactly right, yes. You need to have your mouse over the parameters to see the icon. Oh, I see. I think they mean this. They mean if I just do this on translation, I think they mean this. Oh my God, you can lock parameters. Hey! So you have to lock everything individual. So like rotation as well. Let's go and lock rotation too. Brian, my God. The scaling we're probably not going to touch, but translation and rotation, this is something we constantly touch. This little icon here, those tiny icons. Let me see if it works. If I'm going with the camera selected, I'm looking through the camera. Oh my God, that'd be cool. And I'm going to frame 15. Can I? Yes, I can't move the camera anymore. Brian, bingo! That's unbelievable. That is how we can avoid the camera partaking in animations if we really don't want it. That is so cool. Oh, Brian, I'm totally going to mention that later. That is so cool. Let's share this with as many people as we possibly can. Oh, I need another coffee. This is awesome. Brian, that is so cool. That lock icon. Is this because you found the DAZ documentation? And more importantly, read it? Yes, exactly. That is the badge you get. Not only do you get the red star, congrats by the way, for being a channel member for such a long time, you also get the I taught the guru something merit badge. I like it. Crap! Oh my God, is this exciting? Speaking of which, 85% of you say we should bring the crab and the mouse over to the DAZ stream. Thank you so much. White hair 19 lonely. How exciting. Thank you. 85% of you have said we should bring the crab and the mouse over to the official DAZ stream later. Okay, that settles it then. We'll do that. I might space it out a little bit longer. So currently one person walks over every 5 minutes. I might just space that out to 10 minutes. I think that might be cool. 35 votes. That's exciting. Very good. I like it. And indeed, yes, check out Brian Kramer's humorous sci-fi novels. He also makes exciting tutorials about iClone. So if you're thinking of getting iClone and if you're currently a DAZ user, it's a great idea. Drop by Brian's channel. Thank you so much, Brian. Very, very good. We totally figured out how to lock cameras. My God, that is just amazing. So I have, we have about half an hour's worth of time. Do you want to talk about material zones and how to merge them and delete them and create your own in DAZ Studio? Or would you like to talk about face controls? An exciting product that has so much to offer, and it's something that isn't quite documented as that. What would you like to do? Or is there anything else you'd like to discuss? I'm totally open for anything. Locking cameras. You can also lock other objects then, I suppose. If you're thinking, hey, this guy must not ever move. It must stay in place. I can just go and go, ah, that's so cool. Do you think we can go and globally lock something? But no, we have to probably lock every single parameter if we do that. I wonder if there's a context menu that just says lock everything. Lock the whole rotation. That is just something. Lock selected properties. There it is. Yes, there it is. Do you see that? Do you see that? If I had selected properties like on translation, rather than me clicking every single lock icon once, I can go and can I just go right click on here and lock selected properties? Do they all lock? Nah. Can I multi-select properties? With control maybe? Yes, you can multi-select them with control. So control this, control that, and control that, and control the top guy. And then go into here and say, dang, brother, that's cold. Select all of them and then say, no, dude, stop deselecting things. Is that how we can do that? They're all selected. Right click, lock all of them. Yes, so that also works. Oh, look at that. Very, very cool. Kevin says face controls. Marcelo's happy either way. Haha, Sydney. Yes, that was me. Guilty as charged. I've narrated 2 of Brian's books. Yes, 2 of his books. Yes, the Flickr World and What the Luck. Both a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to read as well. I highly recommend it. And not all that expensive to pick up on the Amazon. You'll find details on Brian's website. Let's do face controls then. Let's do face controls. Let's do that. I will go and show you something first of all. Let's talk about face controls. I will show you the product first, and then I'll show you something that I've made this morning, literally an hour before the stream. So face controls is this product here. And it doesn't really say all the amazing things that are included with this product on the shop page, so that you get kind of hints at it, but you really have to explore it on your own. And let me show you how you might go about that and see how you can work with that. So first of all, it works for Genesis 3 and 8. And it's a DAZ original product. It was not developed by DAZ, it was developed by 4-2D. And he has a couple of videos at the bottom. No, not here, actually, it's on his YouTube channel. And it's also included with the product. So you get some videos in the product that are, I think, on YouTube on 4-2D's channel. He is currently making something very exciting. So it's a very cool creator, I must say. He is developing something that lets you shape heads inside DAZ Studio, much like you can in Unreal Engine's MetaHuman. Very cool. The product is not released yet, but he has shown us preview products on his channel. So very, very exciting. If you find 4-2D, have a look on him. Have a look at him on YouTube, and I might post the link into the description when I find it later. So it looks just like the faceplate that we now get with Genesis 8.1. So my immediate question was, why would I buy this? If I now have it for 8.1, maybe I don't need to buy this product. And that's where I was wrong. So I picked this up when it was on sale, and it's a very expensive product for $50. And what can it bring to the party? Well, so much. It gives you this face rig for the Genesis 3 and Genesis 8 figure. So 4 in total, Genesis 3 male and female, and 8 male and female. So if you like this way of changing the face that you've known from Genesis 8.1, you can also do that in Genesis 8 and 3 now. But that's not all. I thought that was what the product is all about. It also gives you a lot of expressions that you can dial in, and it even gives you sample animations. Let me go and literally just start with a clean scene and bring that in on one of the Genesis 8 characters. In fact, I've prepared somebody who might want to speak to you. He is called Dwayne, and I've applied an animation to Dwayne. So there's the workflow is you get a face rig that you put on the figure, and then you adjust the face rig, and that in turn will adjust facial muscles. And there's a system called FACS, F-A-C-S, I believe, and that is, somebody has figured out how we move facial muscles around, and it's those points that we can now adjust with this faceplate. This is an animation that is included in the product, and it lets Dwayne speak. So it kind of goes wider than just being able to dial all these bits and pieces in with the facial prop that I'll show you in a moment. It can, together with something called Dynamics XYZ, some service that lets you grab regular video footage and put it through their system and hook it up to this stuff, so you can make figures in DAZ Studio have facial expressions just with regular video footage. So it's very, very exciting. And those expressions that you can create with that just by doing and stuff like that, that'll be happening on the Genesis figure. That's a live process. That's not included in the product, but the link to that product is included. So it's kind of exciting. So let me show you something that I've rendered out earlier with this animation, and then we'll see how we can hook this up from scratch. If I can only find where that video is. I've got this here, Dwayne as Richard III.
Papers, nimbly in a lady's chamber, to the lascivious pleasing of a lute.
Very exciting.
But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks,
and have a look at
nor
all
made
the
to
little
court
facial
an amorous
movements that he
looking
makes.
glass. I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before wanton ambling nymph. I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I halt by them. Why, I in this weak piping time of peace have no delight to pass away the time unless to spy my shadow in the sun.
Exactly. That is what reminds me as well. The Dwayne character does remind me of that. And I've dressed him up. He's not quite in situ for what he's saying, but the dialogue was actually spoken by an actor, Michonne LeBron, I believe, that this product links to. And I've compiled the video footage that they've used to extract these facial expressions onto here.
He capers nimbly in a lady's chamber.
So this is
to the lascivious
video
pleasing of a lute
that made these expressions.
But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass, I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce
Man, why, I say? I wanna really know. I wanna know why. What happened? Why is this happening? I'd rather it happens now than later during the large DAZ stream. It's one of those things. Yeah, so this time it looks like it wasn't my internet connection because they were both there, main and a backup. They're both working solidly, and OBS crashed, which is bizarre. So I just had to quickly restart that, and that brought things back, and that's bizarre. So upload speed, download speed's fine. One of those things, crazy stuff. Hey, where were we? Let's talk about yes, I'll do that as soon as once it's actually a video. I might actually make that again because this was a bit of a false starty one, so I'm not entirely sure if this is going to make it into a clip. I might make it into a new one. I'll see what happens. So yes, I will of course link to 4TD if I have a better understanding of how we get through this thing. Let's start with the new scene, in fact, and see how we can apply the whole face mask and how to operate this thing. So I'll use my favorite gray Genesis character because I like him so much, avoiding the nudity on YouTube. Let me go and grab a male character and see if I can remember how to add the face controls. So it says in the description that you can add it either to the figure or to the face of the figure. It doesn't seem to matter, which is nice. Let me go and brighten the scene up a little bit. And go and find the product first of all. So it's under Anatomy in the Smart Content tab. Up here, Genesis 3 and 8 face controls. But it looks like there's not an issue with the Smart Content. I just don't exactly know which one's which. So they're all called Genesis 3 face controls and 8 face controls. It's probably implied by the folder in which they are, but it's not immediately obvious which one's which. So in the regular content library, you can find them under the figure, under the gender and under the pose folder. But in my case, if I wanted to find out where they are in the smart content, I can right click and choose browse to file location. And it is then implied by the folder that this is in fact the Genesis 8 male version. It should probably be named that. So this is male, this is correct. I'll select the figure, double click this to add my face controls on the guy. And this is the same way you do it for Genesis 8.1, except for you get these face plates with 8.1. And then with this, I believe, you can go and click on any of these nodes here, and then go and move the guy's face around and create your own expressions that way. The eyes, and you know, you can click these things and adjust the brow positions and do all kinds of things. So this is exactly how it works with 8.1. And in order to apply poses, this is the other cool thing I like about it. In order to apply poses to this, you can, there's like a vast amount of, there's a huge pose collection that comes with this, and they have extracted this from the animations as single poses, and they need to be applied to the actual face control plate. That's how you do that. Very cool. It's like a Power Pose overlay, exactly. So in I think on Power Pose, this isn't Power Pose compatible, but if you select the regular figure's head and you head over to Power Pose, you have these are the regular control dots, but you can go and switch over to face, and then you have all these things. And the face plate is essentially like an overlay that'll make you select things, I suppose, more intuitively. I believe there's also a way to move the whole face plate around. So if you select the actual face controls, there's no controller for the face controls right now, but I think in parameters you could go and move it up or down manually. If like in Dwayne's case, Dwayne is a character who's much smaller, I can go and adjust the position of the face rig to somewhere that's more appropriate for the character. So I believe, Kevin, you had issues where the face controls were not exactly on the face, and that's something you can just adjust here. I'll move it off to the side. That's also a possibility if you want to see that kind of off the face. If you want to see the face and then actually select these things from here, you can do that too. Have fun making expressions with more morphs than there are currently available on the Genesis figure. So that's kind of the point of this. But what I found amazing about this product is that it doesn't only work with Genesis 3 and 8, and I think you can make it work with 8.1 as well. It comes with a library of poses that will apply to the face controls, and let me show you that. So that's under the smart content in poses. There's vast amounts in here. These are all expressions. They're all kind of, because it's smart content, they're all mingled together. If I wanted to see them for Genesis 8 male, I just go and filter that G8M, G8M, and then I see all the male expressions. Don't judge it by the thumbnail, but if you go and with the face control selected, you can go and dial this in and see my man is making good faces now. Any kind of faces, which is very, very cool. And if you think, well, I prefer my expressions to have dials, you have to do a little bit of manual work, but it is possible to do that. And my tool of choice for those things is always Puppeteer. So I was thinking recently, hey, I don't have any decent expressions for Genesis 8 right now, and I'd love some. And then I've remembered I have this product, so this is going to be fantastic for all the expressions that I need. Sometimes I don't want it to be that strong, so I can go and dial in the neutral expression and go over to, I might even brighten this up a little bit more here. This is too bright. That's good. It's perfect. I might go and use my favorite Puppeteer tool for that. So let me go and select my face controls again, then head over to Puppeteer, and in edit mode, just drop a neutral point in here. And then I'll go and maybe add this expression to it. Add a point here, then I add one here. So I'll just apply a pose. Once it's done it, I'll create a pose point for that in Puppeteer and pick a few expressions that I think might be suitably portray this guy as being minor annoyed, like so. I can do that and then go hit the preview button here, and then I can go and modulate between these things. And that's kind of cool. So now I have my endless possibilities of having this expression slightly less intense. I just go and move the slider further back to the neutral point, and then I can interpolate between extreme and less extreme. So if these poses are too extreme for me, if I want them more extreme, I just move my point over the extension of the pose. So this is 100%, this is technically 200%, and this is 0%. If you wanted to do that. And then of course you can add it to a timeline, you can add it to a slider, you can save it out as your own pose preset that you need. If you don't want to see the face controls, you can just go make that invisible. They're still going to be there and still deforming the face. And that is just, that's the endless possibilities that you have with 100 poses for both the male and the female. It's unbelievable. It's very, very cool. I love it. Let's go back to the neutral and set another neutral point down here and go have a look at some of the other expressions. Maybe this one here, like, that's happy, very good. I like it. These are all the happy ones. Happy goes here. Maybe then this one's kind of a sad one goes here. And then we'll have this one, that's kind of crazy as well. But nice, so they don't look, what I like about these expressions is that they don't look, you know, if I use the sliders and you see the happy expression being like this, that's not happy, is it? That's not happy. That's always what I miss in other expressions, that there's a lot of facial muscle stuff going on, and these seem to do exactly what I'm looking for. So I forgot I had this product, and for the poses alone, it's worth it, I think, especially when you use Puppeteer to literally move them and amalgamate them. It's a wonderful feature. I really like that. Oh my, Michael, don't forget to go via my affiliate link. If you go and type !DAZ in the chat, let me do it, then you will get a link that gets me a small commission of every purchase you make on the DAZ store. I would greatly appreciate that, my friend. Before you check out, click that link, please. Thank you. And this is also on sale sometimes. So I picked this up on sale and I think, wow, this is awesome. But it's not easy to get started with it. So this is kind of a brief overview of how you get there. There's a lot of other files that come with this product and they're not obvious from the smart content. So just so that we all know where you find that. Sadly, that didn't do it, did it? Let me go and put you, this is, why didn't my affiliate link go in there? Let me go into, give you one manually. /DAZ, there we go. That should do it. Thank you, Michael. This is the link that you need to use. I don't know why my bot didn't do that. Maybe the bot disconnected. That could be when we disconnected. Maybe the bot disconnected. That's possible. But yeah, so there we go. This is the link that that we need, and that'll get you to the latest releases on the DAZ store. But it's got that affiliate cookie, and you know, if you click that and then check out, we're best mates. Thank you. So here we go. In Smart Content, you find the face controls under Anatomy. And in here you have Anatomy. These are the face control plates. Then under Animations, you have these motion capture animations, that 3 of which are included, 1 of which I've shown you with the King Richard III thing. You can apply that to the face control plate. So when you apply any of these poses or animations, then you need to go and have that face controls thing selected, and you can move it in the parameters tab. But that is only only half of it. There's a lot more like in regards to documentation and tutorials, and it doesn't really show up in here, not even in the regular content library tab, which I believe shows you, I don't actually know where that is here. It's under people. There we go. So if you go to Genesis 3 female, and I think under poses, and there you find the Genesis face controls, and then you know which faceplate it is. Under here you find another folder with the actual expressions, and then you have the phonemes, and then you have the sample animations here, but you don't have documentation. But there is documentation and videos included with this. It's just not very obvious to find. So I found it by using Install Manager. It's another trick I want to show you, and something that will come in handy if you're thinking, hey, I wonder if the developer has actually included something and I just don't find it. Then in here, this is everything that is installable. This is stuff I've got installed. If you go and search for face controls, once you've got it installed, face controls, there it is on the install tab, then you have these two parts here. So face controls, basically two parts to the product, and the documentation is hidden in part 2. And what I like doing is selecting it on the right hand side of Install Manager. There's this little option here. When you left click on that little icon of that arrow, you see the show installed files, and that gives you full list of things that make up this product. And not only do you get to see the poses and all that, you also see, first one, audio sample links for animations. That's a PDF file. There's also documentation, dynamics YZ to DAZ documentation, dynamics to DAZ Studio tutorial, and there's several others. If you look through this menu, you will find them. I'm going to show you the actual location for these things as well. So if you click on that, the PDF is opened automatically, or that folder is open automatically. And yeah, there's stuff in here. There's stuff in here, including videos that you can have a look at. Another location for this is in fact your DAZ 3D library. While we're here, it has this readmes folder, and it's usually full of stuff. And one of them does actually tell you that there's face controls in here. That's this one here, and that's a HTML document. So if you double click that, you will get usage instructions for that. So it is in there. It's just, I wish they had made a better effort to show us where these important documentation pieces are. But if you go through the file list in Install Manager, you will find it. Yes, and absolutely amazing the amount of expressions and themes that are included with this product. So for that alone, and to make your characters really look alive, it is absolutely worth it. It's a little clunky to add that, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it is absolutely well worth it to do that. If you are in a situation where you're using Genesis 8.1, you might be wondering, can I use these expressions with Genesis 8.1? And the answer is yes. But you need to apply the Genesis 8 face control to the 8.1 figure. You cannot, and I'll show you the implications of that. Let me go back to my smart content and load a Genesis 8.1 figure. 8.1 male. He has his own faceplate that comes with the 8.1 starter essentials, and it has the same faceplate, but it doesn't have the expressions. So that's kind of important to realize. And that is under, I believe, anatomy. There it is, the 8.1 female and male face control. So if I double click that and add that to him, I have the same thing. So this is available for free with the starter essentials, and it has the same the same way of, whoops, I'm so sorry, dude. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to click on your face controls. There we go. So you can move him the same way. You can try this out. If you don't have the product, you can try this out with 8.1 for free. But if you go and select the face controls, where is that? Man, face controls. And then you go and try and apply a pose from the face controls product, which is here. Poses, I'll look for G8M again. If I go and try to apply that now, it's not going to work. And it's because the faceplate is slightly different. I don't know what they've done. It's somehow different. But the workaround is to literally go and remove that 8.1 faceplate and just go and put put the included Genesis 8 faceplate on. That'll work just as well. And once you select that, you can go and pick a pose and then add that, and that'll make these expressions work on 8.1 as well. Just in case you're wondering, that's how to do it. There. That is all I know about face controls at this point, and it is a lot of fun to play with. So I'm going to make extensive use of that in that comic project that I want to build. And you know, it's been 10 years in the making. Maybe eventually, in about 5 years, I'll get it off the ground, and these expressions will just so come in handy for that. Do you know, I think that is all I have for today. We're nearly at 12 o'clock. I want to make sure this internet connection issue isn't going to happen when we do the DAZ stream at 4 p.m. So let's make sure that OBS isn't going to crash. I shouldn't have upgraded. You know, I upgraded yesterday. I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I'll go bring the old version back because that was very reliable, OBS 26.1. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. As I said, at 4 p.m. I'll be on the DAZ channel. Brian probably has the link handy for you if you want to catch me there. I will see you then. I'll build a sci-fi scene with Stonemason's Eclipse bundle. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you later or perhaps tomorrow for a good round of Subnautica. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.